This is potentially the most balanced video series I've ever made, split into 3 parts, the playlist in the description as well as links to the other episodes as they release. The idea is to take all major topics revolving around Assassin's Creed Valhalla and try to argue as best I can both sides, the positives and the negatives. Play devil's advocate with myself to see when the game launches where I actually fall with my opinion. And you can do the same. Let me know in the comments. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is very close to being released. Given my history with Assassin's Creed and the history this channel has with the franchise, it seemed wrong of me not to make a proper video talking about this game before it launches. I've made a couple of small videos discussing elements of trailers, I streamed some reactions to events and chatted on podcasts, but I've never written up a video like this on the game, so what better time to do it than right fucking now. I decided to split this up into 3 parts, all being pretty in-depth, but I wanted these to be digestible rather than one big giant video, especially with my Brotherhood retrospective right around the corner. I'm sure there'll be more things that'll come out about the game between these videos going up and the launch of the game, but what the hell, it likely won't change what I'm talking about here. I wanted to just go over my major issues with the game, things that I'm really excited about, and everything in between. I thought it might be fun to put my essay argument skills to the test and argue against myself, the pros and cons of the game, and see exactly where I land. So we'll go back and forth. I'll argue a positive, and then I'll argue a negative. So what you're really going to be watching is my brain having a fight with itself that I've regurgitated onto paper, and then turned into a, hopefully, high-quality YouTube video about a video game. Enjoy. But before all that, this video is brought to you by the Ridge wallet. Is your old wallet falling apart, unnecessarily big, old? Well, Ridge has got you covered. It holds up to 12 cards with a clip for cash on the back, and there's over 30 colors. You got your carbon fiber, you've got your burnt titanium, you've got your forged carbon, anything you want. Personally, I went with the matte black because I like the sleek and simple look. It's incredibly durable, and each wallet comes with a lifetime warranty, so effectively you could use the same wallet for the rest of your life, and they also provide a service that allows you to test drive for 45 days, so if you aren't happy, you can send it back for a full refund, so it can't even hurt to give one a go. There's a reason they have over 30,000 5-star reviews though. And on top of that, don't forget the RFID blocking technology, which protects against digital pickpocketing, which is a huge benefit. If you're interested, head to my link in the description, ridge.com/lasers, and use code lasers for 10% off at the checkout. That's ridge.com/lasers and using code lasers for 10% off. The world of Assassin's Creed Valhalla is incredibly important. It is to any Assassin's Creed game. Being set during the Viking invasion of England, this is of course no different. The world is split into 4 kingdoms: Northumbria, Mercia, East Anglia, and Wessex, all of which are different from each other in tone, politics, architecture, and landscape, meaning the world is said to be a lot more distinctly varied than previously. I like the world being more tight and beaming with life and variety rather than what we've had in previous years, which is massive worlds filled with very little, separated sometimes by vast deserts or masses of water seemingly for the sake of it. Here we have plenty of differences between the kingdoms, but also in where you visit within those kingdoms. Visiting, say, Winchester is going to be very different from just wandering about the countryside in Wessex itself, and so you'll end up being able to find different NPCs, hopefully hear different conversations, and of course, quests and events themselves will feel different whether you're in a small village or a packed important city area. The examples given are that in the country you might find quests that are more trivial, maybe local disputes, whereas in the cities you're going to have these major Order of the Ancients targets to assassinate as part of the assassin aspect of this game, blending with the crowd in a hostile environment to maybe take down an important target on a stage. And it's that sort of composition of world events that make the various areas feel like they have purpose and do indeed tear them apart from one another. Different amounts of NPCs, types of NPCs, and also different activities and stories to be told, and they all depend on the world location. Rivers are also a major means of transport, meaning your longship with your crew is important to the player. By moving along rivers, you can easily navigate to important cities, settlements, and forts for ease of access or better advantage within raids. The longship also grants access to singing songs or hearing stories from your crew, bringing them to life and giving them a purpose outside of functionality, meaning the player will actually give a shit. But it also means that naval isn't overdone. In Black Flag, it was a great addition and part of that incredible pirate fantasy within a very integral Assassin's Creed story. Then we had instances like the Origins missions or even Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where it felt like they included it more so for the sake of it than anything else. In Valhalla, it feels like it's used perfectly for the exact right reasons and actually has valuable use for the player. Side content in this game is not even really being referred to in the traditional sense. In a lot of games, your quest log will track side quests and stories as well as tasks complete, and you tick those off your list. In Valhalla, they've actually strayed entirely away from that. The only way to track these things will be with different color blips on your map, and so you never necessarily know what you're going to find. Gold blips are used for wealth, so it could be a fort, maybe a monastery, a settlement to raid, and so on. Things to raid and loot. A blue blip is for mystery, so an old cave, an abandoned house, somewhere you have to visit to uncover the story behind it. And the white blips are for secrets, maybe old assassin bureaus, first civ sites, old letters and such. World building. But you're never told what you're going to find. You don't tag a question mark and go over to it and then complete 5 meaningless objectives within that location. If you discover something worth discovering, it'll tag it with one of these colors, so you can come back later. Or you might discover it with your raven, or just by doing a viewpoint, meaning you organically discover these locations and explore them when you want. You aren't completing a checklist or tracking them in your quest log. It's all built into the world and makes it feel so much more natural. The only thing your quest log actually tracks is your main objectives and things that branch from that, such as your settlement. Adding the settlement to me is huge. The Monteriggioni Villa, the Homestead, Great Inagua, the Cafe Theatre, these are all great examples of Assassin's Creed using its renovation and settlement systems. Taking those into consideration when building one for Valhalla means that we have a settlement that allows for us to build new locations, each of which allow the player to access potential missions and quests as well as items, upgrades, etc. But also, the more people we invite to our settlement, the more people we have to speak to, experience stories with, and develop as people within this narrative. It allows for a link between the gameplay and the story, making us care more for the side characters, the settlement itself, but also for the side activities we're going out and doing in the world, bringing back resources to expand our home. Odyssey and Origins both suffer from a huge issue where side content is concerned, and that's meaningless repetition. In Valhalla, we're seeing very similar activities, albeit without the checklist, which I greatly appreciate. However, at what point have we seen it all? Done it all. In Ghost of Tsushima, as much as I love that game, there did come a time where I got sick and tired of birds leading me to fox dens and fox dens leading me to a shrine. It got old. The systemic nature of discovery felt dead and forced. At what point in Valhalla will I see another icon, go to it, and that sense of wonder and discovery is lost? Doing side locations in Origins was fine as long as you didn't do too many, and in Odyssey it was a slog from start to finish. I'm just hoping that playing through Valhalla I don't get incredibly sick of these samey locations with loot that I just don't care about. What is going to tear them apart from one another? What's going to make me care enough to go in and raid another fort? There very well could be a unique reason to do these things over and over again, and I'm sure the settlement encourages that, but like I said, even in games I've championed recently in terms of their method of player discovery, I've still got tired of the same locations over and over again. Side quests, like I said, aren't the same as before. They aren't tracked, and so I'm not too worried about having 16 meaningless side quests sitting in my quest log like in Odyssey. But I am concerned about their tone and consistency with the story they're telling. Moments such as recruiting a cat onto your longship purely because it's cute and silly, or romancing a random NPC who calls his penis a plow sword, does take you out of it a little bit. I feel like The Witcher managed to do silly stuff with their quests without it ever feeling out of touch with the world they've built. But given what we've seen with Odyssey, I am worried that some side quests are going to feel cheap, silly, and world-breaking where immersion is concerned. You go from a deep conversation with Sigurd about the politics of Mercia to, oh little kitty, come be a Viking kitty cat, I'll fucking rip its head off. Sorry. I wouldn't really. There's also the worry of there being too much ground to cover with not a lot in between. Odyssey had too much sea, and Origins sometimes had too much desert, although I do appreciate sometimes games need negative space in their worlds. What I don't want is to be riding my horse for ages and ages to get to an objective without anything major drawing me in. The best open world games are games that have you lost in their world, rather than tunnel visioning to the marker you've set for yourself. If I tag the next main quest, I don't want to get there without anything drawing me off the main path, and from some of the gameplay I've seen, it almost looks as if there's a lot of riding with not a lot else going on, which is easily a worry of mine. Assassin's Creed has gone in the direction of mythology with this recent trilogy, starting with Origins, moving through Odyssey, and now into Valhalla, which isn't an issue. The basis of these games can still remain grounded in reality and history whilst exploring the cultures of the period, sometimes diving into the more mythological realms. The way this is said to be handled in Assassin's Creed Valhalla is similar to that of Origins, which I don't have a great deal of issue with. The use of the historical setting to illustrate a character's inner conflict allows for not only the use of historical mythology, but also depicts the culture and illustrates a character's emotional state. It can be incredibly good if done correctly. One such instance I would say is really well executed was the battle between Apep and Ra, which not only allows for the depiction of a famous ancient Egyptian belief, but also explores Bayek's interpersonal conflict by using the cultural beliefs of the period. With that being the basis of how they're handling mythology and mystical elements in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, it seems a setup that will work, allowing for us to be grounded in Eivor's personal journey, and having their beliefs, which are rooted in Norse mythology, be a part of that journey without the game suddenly becoming high fantasy nonsense out of nowhere. You've also got the added element of the mythology not being tied to canon or lore. They aren't trying to explain it off by saying, oh, it's a piece of Eden doing magic, or it's an Isu illusion, or something else ludicrous. They're playing into the fact that Vikings would often eat or smoke different herbs or mushrooms to elevate themselves into another plane, see the gods, etc. Meaning visiting Asgard is played off as Eivor being high as fuck on shrooms and seeing what he believes Asgard to be, and then we get to have fun and play in that if we so choose. It's also entirely optional, which is great. Whether we like it or not, mythology is now a part of this era of Assassin's Creed. It doesn't mean that it always will be, but for ancient Egypt, Greece, and now this Norse period, it is. And so if it has to be done, this is the best way to handle it. Then we have the other end of the stick, and that is that mystical elements just don't belong here. No matter how you justify it, it's not really in keeping with what I play these games for. I appreciate this is optional, but the inclusion alone dilutes brand identity and controls to an extent what we experience as a whole. In Black Flag, for example, you could have added a mythical Kraken boss fight or undead pirates as part of an illusional Isu trick or hallucination, but by doing so, it really would have hindered the game, and I wouldn't have taken it as seriously as I did. The issue I have with mythological elements is not really one of lore, because, like I said, there's an easy out, and they've taken it. My issue is that Assassin's Creed isn't about that. It's about showing how what was believed to be magic is actually science, and that why did they believe in gods and monsters? Well, it's because the Isu existed, and over the millennia their memory has been twisted into creating these stories and legends of mythical beasts and gods that didn't really exist. That was always incredibly interesting, and then to just say, oh, Asgard is a drug dream, or better yet, those boss fights with those weird people who have the shrines and drug Eivor so he sees the crazy fantasy boss battle, epic lightning and all that shit. The reasoning, oh, it didn't really happen, he was just drugged. But then why do it? Mythical boss fights don't belong in this franchise, and no amount of clever reasoning makes it compelling to me. If adding these crazy fantasy battles and realms of gods or giant wolf mounts had to be explained off as it never actually happened, we're just forcing it and making excuses, then don't include it at all. There's also the issue that despite me saying the section in Origins was well executed, and I do believe that it was because it was a one-off rather than something that's recurring, I don't see how battling frost trolls in Asgard really pushes forward Eivor's personal and emotional journey. It seems more like cheap fun to capitalise on the success of Norse mythology rather than keeping brand integrity, and the thing here is, why not just make it separate? Ghost of Tsushima is grounded in reality whilst also being a little bit stylized here and there, but they created Ghost of Tsushima Legends specifically to be able to tell these high fantasy stories and allow players crazy stupid abilities because they knew it didn't fit with their world. It's entirely in contrast to it. If you created an entirely separate post-game mode where players could visit these crazy worlds with new characters that weren't even a part of the Assassin's Creed canon but instead used the period to tell these stories, you'd be onto a winner there. Everyone would be happy. But I feel that trying to shoehorn in these mythological elements into an otherwise grounded narrative to satisfy a certain audience that doesn't even appreciate traditional Assassin's Creed is, well, it speaks for itself. Believe it or not, Assassins used to be the face of this franchise. I remember when you'd pick up the latest game and on the box you'd see a hooded bloke with his hidden blade and all was right with the world. It seems for whatever reason, Ubisoft don't think Assassins are cool anymore. Origins was the origin, but it didn't really try to be. It shied away from a lot of actual philosophy and creed. Odyssey, of course, was a step further where it was about a Spartan mercenary and the Assassins and Templars weren't even present. They didn't even try, at least in Origins they tried. Valhalla, I'm not sure about, but going from what Darby has been saying, it seems this game is very much an Assassin's Creed game. Darby McDevitt is the man that wrote Revelations, Embers, Black Flag, and let's not forget Bloodlines. He gets this franchise so much. We see so much in Ezio's final chapters that show us this man gets it. When we look at Black Flag, it shows us, even when we take an approach of an Assassin's Creed game from the view of an outsider like Edward, he perfectly tells a personal narrative that allows us to explore the Templars, the Assassins, their ideologies, how they're viewed from another perspective, and the traits that eventually draw Edward to joining the Brotherhood, and his understanding of the Creed. The narrative director of Valhalla is Darby, and he gets it. There's plenty of talented writers on this team though, and a lot of work done by people who are good at what they do. What matters though for you guys and your peace of mind, same for me, is that this team of talented people is being led by Darby McDevitt. Someone who cares for this brand, cares for anything he writes, has true passion, understanding of quality writing and dialogue, characterization, but also allows these writers to do their thing within his narrative direction. Creativity is important, and although Darby is leading this writing team, he's not controlling them. He's helping, guiding, and of course watching over everything. So expect that this game's writing in all aspects has been given the Darby seal of approval in terms of Assassin and Templar mythos. We've seen plenty already from this game, hidden bureaus to find with notes and messages left behind from people who fled England, all written by Darby, meaning the world building and lore of the Assassins and Templars is very well handled and certainly intriguing. We've seen collectible assassin armor in these hidden locations, but also in the trailers themselves. It looks beautiful. We can take out assassin contracts, hunt Templars, and work with the hidden ones from our settlement. There's a lot going on, and that's just open world, quote, side stuff. We've got the return of instant assassinations, being rewarded for your stealth, whether through the little minigame feature or the accessibility options, meaning if you want to, you can delete that entire portion of the game that you dislike. If you feel stealth should reward the player with instant kills, you can have that, and I love it. Not to mention those X-ray assassinations harkening back to that Assassin's Creed 1 Hidden Blade trailer. We've been told the Assassin Templar storyline is important to this game. It's central, and I'm confident that if Darby believes this is the case, then it's the case. I'm skeptical to all hell, and you guys know that about me. I never take shit at face value. I find it almost impossible. But with this, I trust Darby because, for one, he's never put a foot wrong when writing this franchise, and he never bigs stuff up unless he believes there is something there that we'll like. I like to think Darby and I are on the same page, or at least similar pages when it comes to things like this, and I trust him, so hopefully you trust me. But of course, I can't say this entire marketing campaign is without concerns. People like Darby, the As Always podcast, Fishy, JV, and plenty of others are the only ones really keeping up the information that, yes, assassins are in this game in a big way and are important. The only official Ubisoft marketing of this has been the fucking incredible key art and the story trailer, which even still was quite light on details, potentially to hold back spoilers, but regardless, the marketing entirely has revolved around this idea of LikeAViking, which for one is cringe as fuck and I hate it, but secondly, it's showing Ubisoft's out-of-touch nature with what the brand is. Remember this Brotherhood trailer? Look how fucking cool this is. When the hell did this stop being awesome? The marketing, the trailers, the awful IGN videos are all about epic Viking raids and drinking fucking mead or whatever they drink over there. Longship sailing and fur, so much fucking fur. Viking rap battles, slicing heads off and pillaging and fucking... What happened to an Assassin's Creed game being about the Assassin's Creed, for God's sake? You can evolve a game series without changing its core values. Look at God of War. It changed entirely but focuses still on mythology like the originals, boss fights and complex combat like the originals, a character-driven storyline like the originals with beautiful set pieces like the originals. It doesn't lose anything that the originals set in stone, whereas when we look at Assassin's Creed, we lost the hidden blade for a bit. Social stealth is only coming back now, and I'm not even sure how majorly that is. Parkour is just meaningless climbing, but we'll get to that in a later video. And the entire mythos of the franchise is lost because Ubisoft think Vikings and Spartans are really cool, and so they can take away any sense of brand identity, and honestly, it's insulting at times and frustrates me to no end. Like I said, I trust Darby and that what he's saying is true, but that doesn't take away from my anger and disdain for the fact that Ubisoft refused to acknowledge where this franchise came from. For some reason, Assassin's Creed's history has become something they don't want to talk about. Whereas Revelations reveled in the brand's history so far, using Ezio's life, Altair's legacy, and Desmond's continuation, Valhalla treats its own history like something to be traded in a back alley, something they don't want to show up front. I have no doubts that it's there because I don't think Darby would be on board otherwise, but it still bothers me and gives me cause for concern to what extent it's there based purely on Ubisoft's marketing, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Thank you for watching part 1 of this 3-part video series. Like I said, in the description will be a link to the playlist in which all 3 parts will be in as soon as they're all up, as well as links to part 2 and part 3 when they're up as well. So you can check back on the channel if you subscribe or you can go into the description and check them out because they might already be out by the time you're watching this video at a later date. But like I said, don't forget to subscribe, that way you won't miss part 2 and part 3 as they release, as well as any other videos relating to topics you might be interested in. There's plenty of stuff going on the channel and you won't want to miss out. Like I've mentioned before as well, when Valhalla does drop, I'll be streaming the entire game, my first playthrough, over on my live streaming channel Lasers Live, so don't forget to check that channel out and subscribe if you haven't already, because that'll be one hell of a fun series that I don't think you're going to want to miss. With that said though, let me know your thoughts on the topics mentioned in this video down in the comment section below. I always love reading what you guys have to say about things. Don't forget to drop a like, all those bits and bobs. Go follow me on social media if you haven't already. I always update on various things going on in my life, videos, and also thoughts on things that I don't necessarily talk about on the channel. Watch out for the next 2 parts of this video series coming in the next week or so. Plenty of things to talk about, including the modern day, the narrative, DLC, all sorts of bits and pieces going on there, so you won't want to miss out on the other 2 parts of this series. Thanks for joining me, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.